What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Hoops Corner. I'm your host, Peter Tran, and on the line, back in the doghouse, Josh Cohen. How you doing?
Doing well. Can't wait for the NBA Finals to start. It's going to be a fantastic series, and Raj already changed his background. Well done.
Oh,
right on cue.
Goodness, the banger in the paint, our residential medical expert, Roshan Walia. How you feeling?
Hey, it's June. There's max 7 games left in the NBA, so it's gonna be a good summer, boys.
Once the finals are over, you get the draft, you get summer league, you get all the trades that go into the draft. There's lots of discussion to be had this summer. Where Bronny James is gonna go?
You get Olympic basketball.
Oh yeah, sure. The Olympics will be a thing.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. When does that start?
August.
Late August? That's great.
Mid to late, like 14th to the
Because
30th.
usually the NBA sort of dies down around mid-August through September, probably like mid to late September. So if we get the Olympics in between, then that's perfect.
It's true. That's usually when we get banana boat type of stories. So we'll just get Gobert getting dominated by everybody's stories again.
Yeah,
We'll get
pretty
French nut punches. The French team, man, have a thing with nut punches between him and Batum. It's a thing.
I mean, but Batum has to pass it down to somebody now since this will be his last Olympics, right?
That's a good legacy to pass. Josh, what have you been doing for the past week and a half without the NBA?
Going to sleep early. That's a new thing for me.
Wow. Sleep.
Outside of that,
Who
I'm
knew?
not betting on tennis like you. I'm not watching the WNBA to see if my bets are hitting. That's for sure.
Dude, I'm 1-for-1 betting on the W, man.
Did you actually watch?
Yeah. I live bet an LA Sparks game because our Canadian Kia Nurse is in it, Had to show love.
Raj.
It's a thing.
The real story here is Josh saying that he's sleeping more, but I think last night Josh said he could barely sleep because he's containing his excitement, probably going through all the
That'll be
permutations of how the series is going to go.
Raj, what have you been up to for this past week and a half?
Work, Toronto, work.
That's exciting.
Fun.
The usual. Yes, exactly. Not enough basketball. That's
No
the truth.
Definitely
WNBA
not.
bets, huh?
Y'all gotta
With what time?
join me, man.
You don't need
Toronto's
time.
getting a W team. You gotta do some research.
You don't need time to
happening.
bet. You just click, click, click. That's it. Do what Peter does. Find a name and just boom, $100. Or if you're
Yep.
Peter, 10,000.
10,000.
Got that influencer money.
Blowing money
Oh
fast.
my Jonte Porter. Woo!
You wish.
Oof.
Yeah, John.
Are you playing in that
Jonte
league, Peter?
wishes.
You playing there?
Oh my goodness, man. All right, so final start Thursday night. We all know Celtics, Mavericks. And I mean, the first thing I want to bring up is the Celtics are favored pretty nicely, minus 225. Whereas the Mavericks are, quite the underdog, plus 180 if you bet on them. I mean, so the question is really, Josh, why the hell are the Celtics favored so much? I mean, it's pretty drastic. You would expect them to be favored a bit, but minus 225 is insane odds.
I feel like the odds went down too because a lot of people are betting Dallas, right? I think it started at a higher line. So, I mean, it makes sense. Boston's 72 and what is it? 76 and 15 or something like that at this
20
point.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Something absurd.
they're a dominant team, obviously, and their path forward from the start of the first round to here has not been, very difficult, obviously, but they're the first seed, so they earned it. They got that easy road because they played really well throughout the regular season, and they've shown to be a dominant team. And this team is different from the other teams in the past. They have real quality depth. They have 6 very good players, obviously. And the guys behind them, they have 2 more players that they sort of trust in Pritchard and Cornette. And Hauser, I guess, if you want to add him, even though last round he was a pumpkin. But, having 6 guys you can trust in the finals is something that you can hold on to. And most teams that win the finals have, right? Denver had 6 guys last year as well, Bruce Brown.
They had 7 because they had Jeff Green. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Don't know about that one.
Just saying, man. There's a reason Denver lost this year. It's not just Bruce Brown. It's also Jeff Green. Yeah, man. Raj, it sounds like, I don't know, from our off-pod discussions, you have been a major Luka supporter in this position. Like, why are you so high on the Mavericks this year?
Well, I'm not. I'm not going to claim that I was going to predict this Mavericks team to make the finals run that they did. I think again they've really gelled well since the trade. They've added some really key pieces. A lot of unselfish players around Luka, players that know how to get to their spots, make their shots. They got more athletic overall. I think that was one of their biggest problems when you have Hardaway Jr. and you have Dwight Powell. You just don't have that versatility. Like you don't have a player that's big enough to guard bigger wings when you have Hardaway Jr. And then when you have players like Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber, you just don't have guys that are fast enough on the wing and people take them off the bounce. But man, I almost vomited in my mouth when Josh was just rubbing off on the Celtics. Let's be realistic here. Yeah, you can trust 6 guys. Is Porzingis going to play the entire series? Can you trust that? No, absolutely not. Will Jaylen Brown have to dribble with his left hand? Probably.
That's not a thing anymore.
Right? Do you trust him to have 4 to 5 good games a series? I think he can have 2. I don't know if he can have 4 or 5. Like he's a very
What game have you been watching in the playoffs? He's been amazing. I don't like gassing
who's
up
he
Boston.
playing against?
Let's just be honest. I hate Boston. I hope I'm wrong. But based on the matchup, which we'll get into things obviously, I just don't see how Dallas is going to win this series, assuming that Porzingis actually plays 20 to 25 good minutes a game. Nobody
big
knows.
Assumption.
Even if he doesn't play, though,
that's
Boston,
not a big assumption. Hold on, his Porzingis' calf injury should normally would take 2 to 3 weeks to heal. He's been out for 5 weeks. Let's relax.
No,
let's not make it.
Didn't KD have the exact same injury though?
Yeah, but KD's also had a long injury history. So is Porzingis. So all I'm saying is that he's had a lot of time off. Let's slow down and say that Porzingis is not going to be healthy when he's had a month off.
Okay, but the argument could be made that when they were dominating that series, right, against Indiana, that they could have integrated him slowly if he was ready to play. And I'm not saying play 30 minutes, but he wasn't even playing 5 to 10 minutes. Even in garbage time, obviously some of the games were closer. Maybe you don't have him played those minutes. But again, we're talking about an injury here. Sure, let's just say Porzingis does play. I still think the Mavericks have a chance. Are they the favorites? No, because Vegas doesn't lose money. But they have the best player in the series, Luka. They have the player that can on any given night. So let's say Luka's having an off night. There's not many players in the league that are as reliable at getting you points and getting you buckets as Kyrie Irving. And you don't need him to have 5 games where he's scoring 35 points a game. The 1 or 2 games that Luka's not shooting well, he might get in foul trouble, he might get banged up. Can I trust Kyrie to get 30, 35 and take over? Absolutely. And then the other thing that I think a lot of people are discounting is the Mavericks got better on defense. They are just way more athletic. You're going to say, oh, Boston has the wings. Obviously, Luka doesn't have the same speed and whatnot as Jaylen Brown and Tatum, but PJ Washington's a very big wing, right? He's the 4. They have Gafford, who, again, as a 5, he's pretty mobile. If Jayson Tatum gets on him, Jayson Tatum's going to have the advantage. But you still have athleticism. This isn't he's going against Christian Wood, or he's going against Kleber, or Dwight Powell.
Kleber?
They just have more.
Kleber's actually a pretty good defensive player.
He's not going to play much.
I disagree with that for sure. I think the biggest thing in this series is who's going to blink first. Because I think the biggest advantage that Boston has, assuming that Porzingis is healthy, is you're starting Gafford against Porzingis. And I think that's a real stretch point for Boston to really go at every time, right? Whereas on the other side of the ball, you have the Mavericks, who are basically the worst possible matchup for Porzingis to be coming back to, right? Because you know that they're going to pick on him literally every single play. So Boston's going to have to get creative with their scram switching, especially on the perimeter, where you have, Porzingis' guy goes to screen, and he tells somebody else to go over and guard the ball instead, and he has to go to that person's player. I think they're going to have to be really smart with that and hope that Luka doesn't see it first and then pick them apart, because otherwise Porzingis is going to be in every action. So I think whoever wins that battle between who can get the big guy, the starting big guy for the other team off the floor quicker, I think will ultimately probably win the series. So I think Lively playing more is going to be a massive key for Dallas, and then Kleba I think is going to end up playing more than Gafford.
I don't know about that. I am gonna say one thing that, like you mentioned, Dallas has two players that can put Porzingis in that position, right? Tatum and Brown, like they don't use the pick and roll as effectively. Like they get the switches, but like they're not known for that to the same degree Dallas is. And we know that Luka, again, when he has the ball in his hand, he consistently makes good decisions. And if they ever try to double Luka or have at least Porzingis show a little on a pick and roll or on a switch, and then Luka's going to make the right pass. And I think that's the big advantage, because right now, like we said, let's go through the matchup, right? At point guard, you have Luka. Who's going to be guarding Luka? Probably Jaylen Brown.
Ultimately, like people are talking about that. It doesn't really matter because Luka's just going to call up whoever he wants to pick on in that possession. So
yeah. So if you look at the weaknesses that Boston has, they're so much more unathletic on the wings. Like I don't know what you think, Peter. Not unathletic on the wings, in the bigs. Like Porzingis, he's injured. Horford's slow.
I don't know if I would call it a disadvantage in terms like that. Like they have disadvantages in different ways, right? Like Dallas hasn't had to play a team in the playoffs that plays 5 out. Right? Like every team that they've played so far has had one or two bigs that rely on being in the paint. Or in Minnesota's case, Anthony Edwards, who always tries to get in the paint at the same time, right? Whereas Boston made a living this year on playing 5 out. Easy movement, easy threes, and I don't want, like, yes, I understand that Dallas had, like, a top defense in the league for the past, like, 2 or 3 months. Boston had a top 2 defense for the whole year.
yeah,
So I don't want to just dismiss what Boston did all year because Dallas has been hot for, like, 3 months. You know what I mean?
if you look at
For sure.
Sorry,
Like I'm not saying Boston is a horrible defensive team and Luka's they're gonna average 135 a game. I just think that when it comes down to making those plays, I think the advantage that the Mavs had, they can consistently get the matchups they want better than Boston can.
Yeah, if the games are close, I think you have to favor Dallas. But the thing is, like Peter was mentioning, Dallas hasn't played a team like this yet. Because Dallas, if you just look at how they play defense, in the playoffs especially, their entire defense is centered around keeping the other team out of the paint. So they've been really smart about making sure that the ball goes to where they want it to go. So obviously in the last series, there was a lot of opportunities for Jaden McDaniels. There was a lot of opportunities for Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They tried to shut off Towns by double teaming him a lot. They obviously shut down the paint with Edwards. Conley got some good looks as well. Naz Reid had a bunch of looks later in the series, and he started hot, but then he just cooled off. The thing with Boston is you can't really do that because you're going to have Drew Holiday in the corner, who's a fantastic corner shooter. Derek White, who's been hitting everything the last 2 years. And I think maybe you try to force Tatum to shoot a lot of threes because he's been pretty bad at those the last, few months, honestly. So they haven't played a team in which wants to shoot these threes that Dallas is ultimately giving up. So I think it comes down to are guys like Porzingis, Horford, and Holiday going to hit those threes. And if they do, Boston's going to win. If they don't, Dallas has a good shot. So I think it ultimately comes down to, again, Porzingis' health, and then if these guys can hit open shots, because they're going to get a lot of them, I think, in this series.
I think Drew Holiday is probably going to be, in my opinion, probably the biggest factor for the Celtics. Like you said, if he hits his shots, if he can get close to like 15 to 20 a game, I think they're going to have a good chance of winning. I also think his defense on Luka is going to be critical. again, likely Luka's going to get the matchup he wants, but Boston has a very formidable five, especially in terms of just having Derek White, Drew, Tatum, Brown, and then obviously Porzingis. I think that's a great starting five. I just think that because the Mavs starting five maybe isn't as flashy, but I think they're really good at the roles, and I think when the ball's in Kyrie's and Luka's hands, they can put their teammates in good positions to succeed. That's what I think people are underestimating.
So assume that, Luka gets the pick and roll that he wants, gets Porzingis on him, and, we've all seen Luka create magic. Do we trust guys like Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ Washington to hit shots again? Like, Derrick Jones Jr. had that incredible series against the Wolves. PJ Washington was hot against the Thunder. How has PJ Washington played in the playoffs before this year? Being 5 or 6 years in the league? Has Daniel Gafford? Derek Lively, we know, is a rookie. With
PJ Washington has turned into Robert Horry this playoffs, so...
For one series. Let's hold on. For one series, he was Robert Horry. In the Minnesota series, he was basically not there.
No, he hit some key shots. Even though he didn't shoot well, he hit some key shots,
really big shots
in the fourth quarter in a few of those games.
In one game.
Yeah, no, it was like 3 games.
1 or 2, yeah.
So, let's not besmirch the legend of Robert Horry here. Come on.
Yeah, I know. I disagree with the argument where we're criticizing like all Dallas or some of these Dallas role players and comparing them to the Celtics.
You criticize
the Celtics
Dallas
have had.
Players. You're killing Kleber when he's going to play 20+ minutes a game this series.
I'm very confident he's going to play less than 22 minutes a game.
Disagree.
Yeah,
find the best.
He barely played against the Wolves.
That's obviously a matchup thing. You're playing against two big guys. In this series, you're playing against Al Horford. Would you rather Daniel Gafford run out the 3-point line or Maxi Kleber switch on people? Kleber.
Maxi Kleber's been injured. He came off an injury this year. He looks a step slow. He hasn't played much offensively. It hasn't clicked with this unit. I'm going to take Daniel Gafford.
No, you're going to see. Come finals time, Jason Kidd trusts Maxi Kleber. He's trusted him the last 2 years. And, he played 2 games in that series against the Timberwolves. He's had a week off. I think the biggest thing in the 2 games was his shot was off, right? His legs weren't there, but his defense was fine. So I think once we see that Gafford is pretty much unplayable in this series, which I think is going to happen very quickly, I think it's a matter of like how quickly Jason Kidd's going to adjust, because he hasn't changed his starting lineup since they, blew up after the trade deadline, right? He found a combination that worked with Derrick Jones and Gafford starting. But I think in this series, I think it's going to be pretty clear after a game or 2 that he's going to have to switch it up. And, they often bring Lively in after 3 minutes in the first quarter anyway. But I think that time is going to get extended. And then I think come second half, they might make the OKC type of switch where Giddey might start, the game or whatever, but he's not starting the second half. I think ultimately Lively is going to start the second half, or he's just going to start period come game 2. Because that's the way to beat Boston, right? You switch on the perimeter. Lively's one of the best switch players already as a rookie. And he's fantastic at closing out on the perimeter as well. Like, he's able to recover and then keep his man in front of him, which almost no big guy besides like Wemby can do, right? So I think that he's going to be a massive X factor, if not the X factor in the series.
Absolutely. The other thing too is, like, again, Boston's run, I'm not discounting, they played horrible, but like, they really haven't been battle tested. They haven't been in as many close series, big moments. Yes, they had that big recovery against the Knicks. I believe it was game 1 where they stole that game. But not against the Knicks, pardon me. Oh my God. The Pacers, where they stole game 1. But overall, like, I really think if you look at the balance of this team, like, you have a stopper in Derrick Jones Jr. Yes, offensively, he may be a bit more limited, but I think he's a great player to guard what Boston has to offer. He's very versatile. He's very athletic. He's going to be very energetic on D. He's not going to look to have a lot of big offensive input. So he's going to be geared up to lock down Tatum, to be a body on Brown. If he ends up switching on Drew, he can't take him inside. Like, he's just, again, a good defensive player. And I think we're looking at a team that I think in Boston where they haven't done the best with pressure, and they are the favorites, and they're going to know that. And this is the finals. And then you have 2 of the clutchest players in the league on one team. Like I'm not putting money on the Mavs, but I think the Mavs are going to make this a lot closer than what people think. And I do think that they can win the series. And I think the odds are like heavily skewed towards the Celtics unfairly.
I don't know how you can say that when you have what is a historically great team on paper in terms of statistically, they are a historic team based on point differential. I think they have the third best point differential of all time. So generally that tells you that the team is A, going to the finals, and B, probably going to win it. So based on that, the odds make sense, I think. But, based on their history, you can look back and say, you can't trust them, but people said the same thing about Denver. You can't really say that until it happens, right? And I think this is their time.
What do you mean? They've been in the finals. They've been in the semifinals. The same core group of players. Yes, they added Drew Holiday. That's a big change for sure. But the rest of the players have been there before.
They added Drew Holiday, plus Derek White is a completely different player than he was last year.
Derek White was there last year.
He's completely different, though. He's a much better player this year.
He was really good last year in the playoffs, too.
Last year was kind of like a weird season, too, because they did have a coaching change the day before training camp started, right? like Joe Mazzulla was running the whole season with Ime Udoka's whole coaching staff on his own. This year, it's Joe's team. It's his, all of the assistants are his. It's his whole system, right? So last year was kind of like a screwy season, for lack of better terms, I wouldn't.
Hey, they've still made a Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals against what we would argue a more inferior Miami team. And that Miami team had a killer, a very dominant clutch, not maybe statistically clutch, but just mentality clutch player. And now you add, I liken Jimmy Butler's attitude to Luka. Luka is going to, his team might not be as good, but he's just that fucking good. And he's not going to want to lose. And he's going to be that player that if they need a basket, if they need to slow the game down, if they need to get the fans into it, or he needs to take more, I think he can do that. That's the mentality that Boston struggles against.
Yeah, I mean, that is very true. Luka has that. We often hear the story from Shaq where he just makes up issues with other players on the teams just to get his mind going, right? We have no idea who Luka was talking shit to in terms of Minnesota fans in Game 5. It could have been nobody. But, he just made up some person in the stands for all we know, right? But it got him riled up. It got him ready to go. And sometimes you just need a psycho.
He's looking at some 50-year-old lady in the crowd. Who's crying now, motherfucker? And she's like, why are you looking at me?
Yo, low-key, when I saw that, I thought it was Snoop Dogg. I was like, there's no way Snoop Dogg is talking shit to Luka. Come on now.
Snoop Dogg was laughing so hard after that, too. That was funny.
Yeah. Apparently, it was someone behind Snoop, in the courtside seats, who was waving a handkerchief and saying, quit crying or whatnot earlier on that game.
I mean, which is fair, because, Luka cries at everything.
Which, again, but hey, he's Luka fucking Dončić, right? He's a fucking great basketball player. And right now, I maybe I'm just being the opposite of you guys and wanting to be different, but I'm going to say the Mavs are going to win this series.
I think we really need to get in the weeds of, the matchups, which we can do.
Now for your regular scheduled advertisements.
Yeah, so to get into the weeds of this, I'm going to ask two questions. First, who is Luka Dončić guarding?
It's got to be Drew. Maybe Derek White. Luka's got good hands. So the thing I thought of is that we've seen a Derek White and then a Kristaps Porzingis PNR a lot this year, right? So Luka Dončić on Kristaps Porzingis after that switch, it's not too bad. Porzingis isn't just going to elevate over him. He doesn't body as much as typical 7-footers do. Luka's got good hands for a big, and he's obviously a big guy, but he's got really good hands. And he's his defense has taken a major step up this year. Just saying, it's a possibility. It'd be fun to see.
It's actually not bad. I never actually thought of that. Maybe you put him on Porzingis, and then you play with the matchups that way, because Boston's best attack is usually with Derek White screening, or Derek White on the ball and Jayson Tatum or Brown screening for them. It's usually not the big guy. Usually Horford's, hangs out in the corner. When Porzingis plays, it's a little bit different, obviously, because he's more involved. But I think you're probably right. He probably starts on Drew, and then maybe Jason Kidd does get creative and puts him on Porzingis. and then sort of gifts that matchup, and then they, do some things off ball by throwing late double teams at Boston later in the clock. Because the thing you want to do with Boston, obviously, is get them to play in the mud, right? You want to get them to isolate later in the clock and not get into their quick actions where, a guy gets into a 4-on-3 like Draymond Green action where Derek White is in the lane, and at that point you're dead, right? You're either going to give up a wide open dunk or a layup, or it's going to be a corner three. So they have to make Boston play late in the clock. So they have to find a way to sort of goad Boston into bringing Luka in the action maybe later in the clock and then throwing the double teams, I think.
I think the other matchup, just to talk about, is I think Kyrie ends up on Derek White.
See, I think you're running the same problem there, though, right?
Yeah, but who does Kyrie guard then?
That's the thing. That's why I'm saying Boston's a bad matchup for them.
Barbecue chicken.
Then again, like, he's been pretty good in the playoffs. Like, he's actually tried really hard, and he was really good in the OKC series, especially.
Yeah. So
against who?
Who did TJ McConnell guard?
Jalen Williams, second-year player. Oh, come on, man.
Oh, come on. You can't say that. Jalen Williams is a beast. You can't say that.
Jalen Williams was a ghost that series.
Yeah, because Dallas played really good defense against him.
No, it's because he was chasing Kyrie around all series. You think that he had energy to play offense? Come on, man.
But the way they played
Kyrie's
against him was actually very smart. The way they played defense against him, even though he was more tired, obviously, especially in the fourth quarter, they shut him down. Like, they were doing really good defensive principles against him. And
I'm not saying that they didn't. I'm saying that he was just tired from offense. Or from defense, sorry. Same thing with Ant trying to play Kyrie in game one. Like, what do you think you're doing? You're like the anchor of this offense. You can't be chasing around like Kyrie Irving. You know what I mean? But Boston has so many guys to send at him that their offense shouldn't, in quotes, take that much of a hit. And like Kyrie can't hide on defense anymore.
So TJ McConnell, who did he guard when the Pacers were playing?
It was a combination, mostly the guards.
Celtics. Yeah. So again, I really look at Indiana very similarly to Dallas, obviously a Rick Carlisle team. They have somewhat similar pieces, right? Like not entirely, but they do have somewhat similar pieces. I'd say the major difference is Derek Jones Jr. is the 3, and there they had like Nembhard and what's his name?
I think they're totally different.
I do not see that. I gotta see where you're going with this.
Okay. Well, Miles Turner, like defensively, right? Miles Turner, again, I don't want to say the similar player, but like you have a big in the sense that Gafford, right? You have PJ Washington, which could be your Siakam, like athleticism type player. You have a smaller guard in TJ McConnell, who played the later half of that series quite a bit, like played close to 25 minutes. That's your Kyrie Irving. You have Luka, which you don't have another big point guard. So
this is a major stretch.
Yeah, I don't see it.
It is a bit of a stretch, but
going back to like
low-key, Raj is probably like, yeah, this is a nice point, man. These guys are gonna really like this shit.
He's trying to string it out, but then he's like, wait a second, this doesn't actually work. Should I keep going?
Did I just compare
I
Daniel
decided to stop,
Gafford and Miles Turner?
But the argument on the opposite end is the Celtics made players on the Pacers look like okay offensive threats. Like, yes, they played well beyond their scope, but these aren't all-star players.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was like matchup hunting, though, because Nembhard was going crazy against Horford in the pick and roll. And
you don't think Luka and Kyrie are going to do that?
No, for sure. But Boston, I think, is going to get more creative against Dallas than they were against Indiana. Maybe they weren't trying to showcase.
I don't know. Missoula's not that smart.
Yeah, maybe not. But again, if Porzingis is healthy, nobody knows that yet. We'll see. But if he's healthy, Boston's going to win. But if he's not healthy, things change, obviously. But going back to Luka, I think the other thing they could do is go the Golden State route and put Luka on Jaylen Brown and then try to get sort of like goading Boston into going the isolation game with Brown against Luka. Because one thing Luka actually does pretty well is he's very good in terms of post defense, right? And then if you isolate Jaylen Brown with 10 on the clock against Luka, then you can bring your center over and not have to worry so much because Dallas is very good at rotating out of that, right? It's just early in the clock, Boston has the advantage. Later in the clock, Dallas has the advantage, right? So maybe you try to goad Boston into the isolation game and get out of their actions. That's sort of like the way you try to get Boston in the mud, right? So maybe that's a little thing they can throw in there every once in a while, at least.
Man, did you just say Luka has good post defense? Are
He
we really
does.
doing the? No, no. Sorry, I agree. What I was gonna say is, are we gonna do the James Harden to Luka Doncic comparison again?
No,
Oh my
no,
god.
that's okay.
Just
But he
putting it
has
out
been
there, man.
better. Like over the course of the playoffs, he has gotten better in terms of his effort. Maybe because he's healthier now. I don't know, but
I
you
think
can
he
see
just
he's
cares
trying to.
more. I
Yeah,
think
like
he sees a team that like finally has pieces that work with him, and he and Kyrie have this really strong chemistry between the two of them, right?
yeah,
So
you're not
he
seeing the
probably
same
yeah.
Ole defense either, where he just lets guys go by and then hopes that one of his guys will come over and help him. He's not doing that as much. But the one thing we haven't talked about yet is Kyrie Irving, especially offensively. So I'm just gonna bring up his game log against Boston, okay? So ever since he got traded from, or not traded, I guess he signed with
He
Brooklyn,
signed
right?
with Brooklyn.
He signed with Brooklyn, okay. So his first two games, phenomenal. 37 points, 40 points, great shooting. Since that time, how many times has he gone over 25 points in those 7 games?
0.
Zero. That is correct, Raj. He has gone over 20 points 3 times in those 7 games. And he has shot over 50% 1 time. So I could foresee that being a problem. I think that's a real trend, honestly, because Boston has the guys to defend him. They have Derek White, they have Drew Holiday. I actually think Drew Holiday is going to start on Kyrie Irving. I think Jaylen Brown's going to start on Luka. But I think Derek Lively is going to be the X factor of the series, but Kyrie's the key. Like if he's not scoring 25 plus points per game, Dallas is dead in the water, I think. Unless Luka goes for like some insane LeBron type finals, appearance against Golden State where he's averaging like 40, 10, and 10 or something.
I was
Um,
gonna say, can Luka just average 40 a game this series and just carry the offense?
maybe. I
Carries
mean,
40, has
If
like
Porzingis
eight or
is
nine
healthy.
assists, so he's creating another like 20, 25 points on his own.
if they
That's like
go the Golden
65,
State
70
route
points.
and just play a bunch of switchable players around Curry and then just rely on Doncic, who would be the Curry in this situation, to carry them, maybe that's the way over the finish line, right? But Kyrie's gonna have to find a way to get the guards off him and pick and roll because I think they're gonna go over the screens and then try to make him play in that in between area. But they're the best in the league at going over the screens and getting back to him, right? So he's gonna have to find ways to create good percentage shots against really good defense, which we've seen so far against Boston. He's not very good at. So we'll see.
Throughout the whole year, Boston's had like I think a top three pick and roll defense, right? So I mean that really implies that there's like constant switching. So earlier you guys talked about how Porzingis would do if like Luka got a pick and roll on him. Well, the idea would just be for Boston to do a quick rotation, right? So Porzingis isn't stuck on Luka alone, and you sort of just rely on a quick rotation all around the board. And I don't know, it kind of seems like Boston is built for that at this point. But then again, it's Luka. He might just elevate over whoever is guarding him and bang along three on them.
I wouldn't call it elevating.
Well, he might put his
Yeah.
hands high in the air
He
and
just
shoot,
waits,
and
awaits.
then bang a three on them. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
think
It'll be interesting to see what they do with Luca and Kyrie because everyone else really just relies on those two to create for them, right? Not expecting PJ Washington to create offense. Not expecting Derrick Jones Jr. Obviously not Gafford or Lively to create their own.
Yeah, I
Josh
think
Hardy.
uh, I think one interesting thing that Dallas has done the entire playoffs is when teams apply pressure to them, they bring somebody up, usually the center or PJ Washington, to like half court, set the pick there, and then just get into their offense right away because it's basically impossible to guard at that point because Luka has so much space or Kyrie has so much space. So that's one way for them to get Porzingis or Horford in the pick and roll quickly instead of Boston being able to do the scram switch with somebody else coming up.
Like a set
Exactly.
defense.
So I think
Maybe
that's one way to do it if Boston applies pressure, which I don't really think they're going to.
maybe we'll see that a lot more with Kyrie then, because Kyrie going downhill is insane, right?
Yeah, that's one way
You
to
get
get the
that?
guards off him.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
going back to the matchups. So let's say starting five, Boston. Who's guarding the starting five of Boston? Then let's do the opposite with the Mavs, because we kind of know who's likely going to start. Let's assume Porzingis is healthy for game one. So Boston's starting. Who's on Derek White?
I think the biggest thing is like, who is Derek Jones Jr. going to start against? I think it's going to be Tatum. But there has been talk about him guarding Brown, which I don't really understand, because Brown, his biggest advantage is bodying into somebody and getting his little 15-foot fadeaway off or pull-up shot against. And I think he'll be able to do that pretty effectively against Jones, because Jones is more slight, even though he is pretty strong. He's actually stronger than he looks, but I think he's a better matchup against Tatum.
Yeah, I agree. So, but who's going to be on White then?
I mean, I can't be Luka. It's definitely not going to be Luka. It might be
Kyrie.
Might be Kyrie.
It's gonna be Kyrie. Then we have Drew Holiday. It's gonna be Luka likely.
I think
PJ Washington on Jaylen Brown, and then Gafford or Lively on Porzingis. Now the opposite. Who's guarding Luka?
I think they're going to mix up the matchups a lot, though. I think
who's
Drew
guarding?
Holiday is going to get a turn. Derek White's going to get a turn. Whenever Derek White is on Luka, though, Luka just destroys him. He just backs him in and shoots a little 5-foot shot against him. So that's not a good matchup for them.
Yeah. And then Kyrie will likely be Derek White.
Or Drew,
I think it's going to be Drew.
depending on the matchups. Depending on depends what the transition is like, right?
Yeah, and then PJ Washington's
Who
what? Going to be
cares?
Jayson
Put a
Tatum.
cone.
Derek Jones Jr. A different cone.
like those guys are it's so interchangeable with those two, right? Actually, it might be Porzingis on Derek Jones Jr. and then you put Tatum in the middle with Gafford or Lively, because Tatum's a better rebounder than Porzingis is at this point.
Oh yeah,
He's bigger, he's stronger.
Yeah, but then Luka's just gonna involve PJ Washington in the pick and roll,
which Boston might be fine with.
Then
though,
you
right?
also have a bit of the lop. Yeah, but then you also have, if Luka gets a bit past or around that screen, or if they don't they are probably going to go over the screen though.
I mean, I'm sure that'll depend on the pick, but yeah, even if, so what if he brings up Derek Jones Jr. for the screen? Then what? You have Porzingis, or if he brings up PJ Washington, you have Tatum or Brown.
I think they're going to have rules, right? I think they're going to have rules based on who picks. So I think if it's Derek Jones Jr. and you have Porzingis on Derek Jones Jr., I think you trap. And then you force Derek Jones Jr. to make the play in the 4-on-3, which he was actually really good at in the OKC series. That surprised me how good he was in his decision making. I think what you don't want to do is have, Derek Lively's guy come up and trap or even drop. Like, you got to mix it up a little bit so he doesn't really know what's coming every time. Because the last thing you want to give up is the alley-oops, because, obviously Dallas is by far the best team doing that. So
I wonder if, after Kyrie, is there anyone on the Mavericks that has more playoff experience than Derek Jones Jr.? Gafford, no. Washington, no. Luka, yeah, sure. It has to be between Luka and Derek Jones Jr., right?
Kleba, I guess, too.
Probably.
I guess Kleba, Dwight Powell, whatever. But they're not like, yeah.
They're not playing.
They're not really relevant in this conversation, you know what I mean? I don't think Kleba's... I know you're high on Kleba. I don't think he's going to have that big of a role here.
You're going to be surprised. He's going to play a lot this series.
I hope so. I love seeing Maxi Kleba on the floor, but I don't know, man.
Over under 15 minutes per game for Daniel Gafford.
Ooh.
Over.
You're going to be surprised.
15, 1-5. For sure over. If you said 23, I'd be like, okay, that's a good number.
It's hard to play these big guys against Boston. They take advantage of them. That's how they get their advantages against slower players, right? So I think the one way he can stay on the floor, though, is if they do invert the matchups and they don't have Tatum or Porzingis on him a lot of the time and he just abuses the offensive glass. That's one thing the centers have to do if Boston decides to mix up the matchups just to try to be able to switch everything, is those guys have to just eat the boards like they did in the last couple of series and get 10-plus offensive rebounds combined.
Daniel Gafford has played under 15 minutes twice this playoff run in the first two games. Every other game he's been hovering around 18 or more.
Every
18-30.
series is different, as we know. And hopefully, unlike OKC with Giddey, if this does turn out to be a series where Gafford is completely unplayable, when you see that in the first couple minutes, hopefully Dallas will adjust and, make the adjustment quickly.
Yo, easy
Or
with the Giddey
lively.
hate, man.
What's
Chill out
that?
with the Giddey hate.
He sucks. And we knew
Yeah, I know.
going into that series they were going to force the ball to him. They put the Dallas centers on him, and clearly he was unplayable. He was like minus 39 in the first two games, and yet he was still starting in game 3, and you're just like, I understand what you're trying to do here. You're trying to keep his confidence up. You're trying not to have a situation where he comes in the next year and turns into a pumpkin, but at a certain point, you just got to let go of the rope.
Poor Josh Giddey, man. All right.
He
was awful.
bad.
I'm just, I'm trying to be nice here. Have some sympathy for the guy. Who was worse in that series, Josh Giddey or Gordon Hayward? That's the real question.
Well, I mean, Hayward didn't even
Gordon
show up to
Hayward.
the arena, so
That's
he
true.
literally every single time he got the ball, he'd like dribble out to whoever's the closest ball hand and just hand it off to them. It was incredible. He took like one shot the
Yeah,
entire
exactly. It was
playoffs. It was
just-
incredible. It was impressive, actually.
Nice payday, though.
Yeah.
You know? Just getting paid to stretch. Yeah.
He's made
getting
his
paid
money.
to stretch with the team on the sidelines. Not bad.
And run
Good for you,
around when he's
Gordon.
on the court. Just run sideline to sideline. It's like doing suicides.
Just a little cardio run, you know?
Yeah.
You go to the Y, Gordon Hayward goes to the playoffs. No big deal.
Is Gordon Hayward out of the league next year?
Oh.
No. He's gonna take like a vet man.
Is he going to get one?
He's going to go to, like, Utah or Indiana next year, man.
Yeah.
Did I
I
just
could
find
see
the
that.
two whitest teams I could think of? Yes, I
was
did.
about to say that, yes.
He might go back to Utah for memory's sake.
They could use a veteran. You know.
They need salary cap.
They just got to fill in roster
They gotta pay
space.
someone.
Philadelphia has a lot of cap space right now, so maybe they give him a big contract to trade him later.
Wow, imagine if they gave Gordon Hayward a contract after Tobias Harris. Woo!
Like,
That
imagine
city
nobody takes Philadelphia's cap space, and they're like, "What do we do now? I guess we sort of have to get." Because Morey's done that in the past. He's given like pretty terrible players like $10+ million just so he can trade them later. I think the first case of that was like Keith Bogans back in the day, where
Yo,
they
Keith
gave him like a
Bogans.
$10 million contract just so they could trade him during the season.
I mean, I did not expect to hear a Keith Bogans shout out, so good for Keith Bogans, man. I like Keith
Yep.
Bogans.
Keeping the
All
dream
right.
alive of averaging 2 points a game starting somehow.
Predictions. Raj, what do you got?
Well, I've already spoiled the news, but I just want to believe. I don't hate the Celtics. I just don't like them. And I like Luka. I think Kyrie's obviously a wizard on the court, as LeBron would say.
Well, that's a whole other thing.
So I'm
LeBron,
gonna go
get off the tip.
yeah,
Jesus.
Mavs in 6. I know, Mavs in 6.
As much as I want that to happen, I
On
hate
home
Boston,
court.
obviously, but I think this is a bad matchup for Dallas, and I think this is a time where Boston breaks through, even though we don't want to see it. And I think they have the talent advantage. They don't have the coaching advantage. They don't have the best player advantage. Everything's sort of pushing me towards Dallas, but the way they play defense, I think they're going to have to really like adjust their mentality and their schemes really to win the series and what they do. Will Jason Kidd do that? We'll see, but I'll take Boston, and everyone's saying 6. I'll go 5.
Wow. You think Luka only gets him one game, huh?
I'm like reverse jinxing it right now, so
Yeah, he's going to be.
He actually
opposite.
wants Dallas sweep. I see it. I see
Vegas thinks Boston in 5 though, so I'm gonna go with Vegas.
it. Sure, man. Let's go Boston in 7, just so we get more games.
Yeah, I'm about that.
Yeah.
I
That'd
think
be-
Boston's going
I'll
to win,
take it.
That would be the worst conclusion though. Having to watch
Boston
a
in
game
7?
7 and see them actually win it. Oh man, that'd be brutal.
Why?
You're having all
They'll be
that
at
hope that
home.
Dallas is gonna win on the road, and then it just gets crushed in the
They'll
last
be at
game of the
home.
series.
TD Garden will be bumping. The ghost of Bill Walton will be there.
But imagine
They'll
that
have a tribute for
euphoria
Bill
if Dallas
Walton.
actually wins Game 7 on the road. How crushing that will be for Boston fans. That'd be absolutely incredible.
Yo, Kyrie
That's what I
will
want to
literally.
happen.
Kyrie will set that place on fire with his sage. Whoa.
He'll step on the mascot at half court again.
He's gonna burn it with his sage. What do you mean?
That'd be amazing.
Man. You got any stats, Corner?
I have old stats corner. Let's see here.
Bring it back from 2010.
We can do a couple things, I guess. Most attempts at the rim in the playoffs as of a couple of weeks ago.
As of when? You gotta give us a date.
May 20th?
I think that was the start of the conference finals, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh my god. So just forget everything that happened in
Most
the
attacks.
Minnesota-Dallas series and the Boston-Indiana series.
Actually, let me find something sooner. Hold on one sec.
Most...
We don't do
Oh,
screen
man.
assists, obviously. Let's not do that. All right, let's do most pull-up field goals attempted in the playoffs. This is only by attempts. Who has attempted the most pull-up shots, 2 or 3, in the playoffs thus far?
Okay, I'll go first. Jalen Brunson.
Yes, number 2 at 197.
Anthony Edwards.
Number 3 at 171. These are all easy, by the way.
Wait, so, and sorry, when's the end date, or is this up to now?
This is up to now.
Okay. Oof.
So these are all guys that have obviously made it pretty far in the playoffs, right? Based on the amount of
Yeah,
attempts.
of course. I'm just trying to think.
I love how intense Raj gets with these, man.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to get one wrong.
No, I get more than one. I'm trying not to get 10 wrong.
Batting
That's the thing.
100% here, man.
Yeah. I'm gonna say
With my WNBA bets.
I'm gonna say Jayson Tatum.
Number 6, actually. 129.
Luka.
Luka, number 1, 244. And again, Brunson was at 197. So he's taking a bunch.
Say Kyrie Irving.
Number 5, 139. And last one should be very easy. He's known for this. He's one of the best scorers in the NBA.
Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant? What game are you watching? He's out in the first round.
Well,
You didn't take that
Oh
many.
my god. Woo. That one got me, man. That one got me. I'm sorry.
yeah. Okay. No. In all seriousness,
Oh.
pull up. Would it be Jamal Murray?
Oh my goodness. No. I'm disappointed.
Jaylen Brown.
No.
Jalen loves his pull-ups, man. You seen Jalen like 2 or 3 years ago, mid-range pulleys? Come on, monster.
This guy didn't make the conference finals.
Whoa, scrub. Okay, no conference finals. Oh, Shea.
There you
What's wrong
go.
with us?
SGA, 142 field goal attempts via the pull-up. Now,
Canada's finest.
out of those 5,
Absolutely.
can you rank them in terms of effective field goal percentage on the pull-up shot? So you have Kyrie, SGA, Edwards, Brunson, Dončić. Who's number 1?
Can you go, Peter?
SGA.
Correct. 58% effective field goal percentage.
All middies. No threes for
I'm
Shea.
gonna say, yeah. I'm gonna say Kyrie.
Kyrie is number 2, 52.9%.
Ooh,
So you have
okay, who are the last
Dončić,
three?
Brunson, Edwards.
Man, those are,
If you get this correctly, I'll be very, very shocked.
wow. Edwards, Brunson, and Dončić, right?
You were close.
Guess the next. I'll guess the
You were
fourth.
close.
There's no way it was Ant. Was it? Did he kill enough in the first 2 series for this to be Ant?
Final answer.
Dončić.
I'm waiting for Raj.
Dončić. Dončić at 3.
No, Edwards was number 3. We're correct about that. Dončić was
Yeah, and then-
4th. And Brunson was the
And then Brunson
worst.
lost.
So,
Well, that's expected.
You just
though.
took a high volume.
Yeah.
Yeah, you took a high volume.
that's expected?
Yeah, he literally
high
drove
volume.
the offense for the team for 2 series.
I guess so. He did score a lot of points, though.
What kind of questioning is that?
He's like, is that obvious?
He was hurt.
He had 40 points and 5 assists in 3 straight games, so I didn't think you guys were going to think that he was at the bottom.
No, efficiency, right? Effective. Like, he took a lot of shots. I don't blame him. It's just like, and it's, again, he's still decently efficient. So
Yeah, he's still
knew he was 4 or 5.
He's still top 5. Like, it's still really damn impressive.
No. This is in terms of percentage between the 5 guys who took the most.
Yeah.
45% effective field goal percentage is not good. I think the average.
Wait, is that what he had? He had 45?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like on pull-up shots, most guys are not very good, honestly, obviously, right? So if you're shooting pull-ups, you're probably in like the 52 to 53% range if you're good.
Yeah.
58 is like insane, obviously, with SGA. But the other guys, for example, like Tatum, 129 attempts, 39.9% effective field goal percentage. So, again,
I trust everyone on Boston.
I do trust everyone on Boston. Jayson Tatum hasn't taken many pull-ups this year, man. Just watch their games. Jayson Tatum's a passer now.
No, but honestly, like, you watch
7
Boston,
assists a game.
like that's what you want him to do. You want him to like get the ball with 10 seconds on the clock and then go into his fadeaway package or shoot a pull-up 3, because he's been, like, honestly, he's never shot the pull-up 3 well ever. So that's what Dallas wants. That's it for me.
Beautiful. I mean, we were like half good on that, so I'm okay with that.
You did all right.
We'll take it, Peter.
All right, boys, let's get ready for some finals action, and then maybe we can reconvene next week. Good stuff, Raj. Happy
Go Mavericks.
This guy,
finals. There we go. Go Mavericks.
Let's go Scott Foster and Tony Brothers and all the other officiating. Zach Zarba, the guys that we really want to see out there.
Honestly, anybody but Brothers at this point. He's been the worst ref in the playoffs by far. You've noticed him the most because he's called the most texts. He's gotten the most angry at players, and he just has the shortest fuse. He's like Joey Crawford at this point. He's terrible.
Yeah, he's gonna be the next one to find out that he has like a burner account.
Who's
a really jacked one? Who's a really jacked the black dude? Oh,
James something.
Always makes like goofy faces at the camera.
James something.
I know who you're talking about too. I can't remember what his name is.
We all know who he is, man. He's jacked as hell. But
He's
the one that we actually want to see.
He really plays up his
James
too.
James Williams.
That does not sound accurate.
No. He is a referee, but that's 100%. Not him. But yeah, when
Courtney Kirkland?
No, I don't think so. This is bad podcasting, by the way.
Wrap it up, Peter.
Bill Kennedy.
That's the one.
Bill Kennedy, my guy.
When he's the guy that goes to the replay center and has to announce it afterwards, he has that like very dramatic pause before he actually announces what's going to happen. It's actually very funny.
Yeah. See, he's the one I want to see in the finals, not Tony Brothers.
Yeah.
Good referee breakdown, guys. And on that note, I want to thank everyone for listening. Please remember to rate and subscribe. We're on Spotify, iTunes, all the major podcast platforms. You can find us on all the socials, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, X. And until next time, peace.